Greetings. I am Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, once emperor of Rome, philosopher in the Stoic tradition, and servant of the greater whole. These writings, what you know now as meditations, were never meant for an audience. They were notes to myself, reflections written in the quiet margins of war campaigns, between imperial obligations, or under the weight of illness and loss. They are a reminder of how to live rightly, even amid chaos. Book 2 begins after my return from the frontiers, Gaul and the Danube, where the empire faced barbarian invasions and plague. These were hard years. I had already lost my beloved wife, many of my children, and had watched close friends betray me. I had seen the Senate falter, fortune turn, and mortality surround me. And yet, in the stillness of thought, I turned inward to preserve something constant: reason. In this book, I reminded myself of the kind of man I aspired to be, not as emperor, but as a human being. I wrote about discipline, clarity, acceptance, and inner freedom. You will hear reflections on death, on dealing with difficult people, on the danger of distraction, and the power of focusing on the present moment. These are the Gregory Hays translations, faithful, accessible, and, I believe, true to the spirit of what I meant to record. After each passage, you will hear an explanation, a commentary, to help guide your understanding and draw out what remains timeless in these words. Let us begin, not as ruler and subject, but as fellow travelers striving to live wisely. Meditations 2.1. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. And so none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative, or hate him. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the 2 rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. In Meditations 2.1, Marcus Aurelius prepares himself mentally to expect human flaws, not be surprised by them. Understand that wrongdoing comes from ignorance. Recognize that all people share a rational divine nature. Accept that no one can truly harm his character. Reject anger and hatred because they are against nature. Live cooperatively with others, maintaining his own virtue. It's a powerful morning practice. To begin each day with realistic expectations, compassion, resilience, and a commitment to virtue, regardless of how others behave. Meditations 2.2. Whatever this is that I am, it is flesh and a little spirit and an intelligence. Throw away your books. Stop letting yourself be distracted. That is not allowed. Instead, as if you were dying right now, despise your flesh. A mess of blood, pieces of bone, a woven tangle of nerves, veins, arteries. Consider what the spirit is. Air, and never the same air, but vomited out and gulped in again every instant. Finally, the intelligence. Think of it this way. You are an old man. Stop allowing your mind to be a slave, to be jerked about by selfish impulses, to kick against fate and the present, and to mistrust the future. In Meditations 2.2, Marcus Aurelius distills the human being into 3 parts, flesh, breath, and intelligence, and urges himself to dismiss the first 2 as insignificant and fleeting. Only the rational mind deserves his effort and protection. He calls for a life of immediate action, detachment from the body, and freedom of the mind, free from passions, fear, and resistance to destiny. It's a clear Stoic message. Life is short, the body is weak, but the mind can be strong and free if we choose to discipline it. Meditations 2.3. What is divine is full of providence. Even chance is not divorced from nature. from the inweaving and enfolding of things governed by providence. Everything proceeds from it. And then there is necessity and the needs of the whole world, of which you are a part. Whatever the nature of the whole does, and whatever serves to maintain it, is good for every part of nature. The world is maintained by change, in the elements and in the things they compose. That should be enough for you. Treat it as an axiom. Discard your thirst for books, so that you won't die in bitterness, but in cheerfulness and truth, grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. In Meditations 2.3, Marcus Aurelius reaffirms, the universe is governed by divine providence. Chance is an illusion. Everything fits into the cosmic order. Change is natural and sustains the world. We are parts of a greater whole, and what benefits the whole benefits us. Rather than chasing endless learning, we must live wisely. We should prepare to die with gratitude and peace, not bitterness. It's a compact but profound reminder to trust the cosmos, accept change, and focus on virtuous living, not distractions or complaints. Meditations 2.4. Remember how long you've been putting this off, how many extensions the gods gave you and you didn't use them. At some point you have to recognize what world it is that you belong to, what power rules it and from what source you spring, that there is a limit to the time assigned you, and if you don't use it to free yourself, it will be gone and will never return. In Meditations 2.4, Marcus Aurelius reflects on a truth we often ignore: how long we've been putting off living rightly. He reminds us that many times the gods have granted extensions, extra moments of life, and yet we continue to delay. At some point, he says, we must recognize the world we belong to, the greater order that governs it, and the divine source from which we spring. We are not isolated beings, but parts of a rational, interconnected cosmos. And time, our most precious resource, is limited, assigned to us in a fixed measure, never to be renewed. If we do not use it now to free ourselves from fear, selfish impulses, and resistance to nature, it will slip away forever. Marcus calls us to act, not tomorrow but today. True freedom is not granted by fortune or circumstance. It is earned by mastering ourselves, by living according to reason, by aligning our actions with the nature of the whole. To live well is to live with urgency, clarity, and gratitude for the time we are given. Meditations 2.5. Concentrate every minute like a Roman, like a man, on doing what's in front of you, with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice, and on freeing yourself from all other distractions. Yes, you can, if you do everything as if it were the last thing you were doing in your life, and stop being aimless. Stop letting your emotions override what your mind tells you. Stop being hypocritical, self-centered, irritable. You see how few things you have to do to live a satisfying and reverent life? If you can manage this, that's all even the gods can ask of you. In Meditations 2.5, Marcus Aurelius reminds himself of a simple but powerful discipline: to concentrate every minute like a Roman, like a true philosopher. He urges himself to focus on the task before him, seriously, tenderly, willingly, and with justice, casting aside all distractions and temptations. He writes that one should live each moment as if it were their last. No aimlessness, no surrender to emotions, no hypocrisy, selfishness, or irritation. Marcus understood that it takes only a few things to live a good and reverent life: clarity of purpose, discipline of mind, and actions guided by justice and reason. This, he believed, is all that even the gods ask of us: to be present, to act with virtue, and to meet each moment with peace and sincerity. Meditations 2.6. Yes, keep on degrading yourself, soul, but soon your chance at dignity will be gone. Everyone gets one life. Yours is almost used up, and instead of treating yourself with respect, you have entrusted your own happiness to the souls of others. In Meditations 2.6, Marcus Aurelius delivers a stark reminder to himself and to all of us. He speaks to his soul, chastising it for continuing to degrade itself, for falling short of the dignity it was meant to uphold. Life, he acknowledges, is fleeting. Everyone is granted one life, and his own is nearly spent. The opportunity to live with honor and virtue grows smaller with each passing day. But the greatest mistake, he warns, is entrusting happiness to the souls of others. True fulfillment cannot be found in the opinions or approval of others. It must be rooted in self-respect, in the disciplined life of the mind aligned with virtue. Marcus urges us to remember, dignity, happiness, and peace are not gifts from the outside world. They are choices, cultivated within. And time to choose is running out. Meditations 2.7. Do external things distract you? Then make time for yourself to learn something worthwhile. Stop letting yourself be pulled in all directions, but make sure you guard against the other kind of confusion. People who labor all their lives but have no purpose to direct every thought and impulse toward are wasting their time, even when hard at work. In Meditations 2.7, Marcus Aurelius offers a timeless warning. He asks, do external things distract you? If so, make time for yourself. Step back from the noise of the world and devote yourself to learning something worthwhile, something that refines the mind and shapes the soul. But Marcus cautions against a deeper danger as well, the confusion of a life spent in ceaseless labor without purpose. He reminds us that hard work alone is not enough. Without a clear aim to guide every thought and impulse, even the most tireless effort is wasted. True discipline, Marcus teaches, is not found in endless activity, but in focused intention. A life directed toward virtue and reason. This is the only labor worthy of our time. Meditations 2.8. Ignoring what goes on in other people's souls. No one ever came to grief that way. But if you won't keep track of what your own soul's doing, how can you not be unhappy? In Meditations 2.8, Marcus Aurelius offers a simple but profound lesson. He reminds us that no one ever came to harm by ignoring what goes on in the souls of others. The actions, thoughts, and motives of other people are beyond our control and are not our responsibility. Worrying about them only leads to distraction and unrest. But Marcus warns of a greater danger, failing to pay attention to one's own soul, to neglect the state of your own mind, to ignore your own thoughts and actions. This is the sure path to unhappiness. True peace and fulfillment, Marcus teaches, come not from judging others, but from tending carefully to your own inner life. Happiness is born from self-awareness, from living in accordance with reason and virtue. Meditations 2.9. Don't ever forget these things. The nature of the world. My nature. How I relate to the world. What proportion of it I make up. That you are part of nature, and no one can prevent you from speaking and acting in harmony with it. Always. In Meditations 2.9, Marcus Aurelius offers himself a simple, profound reminder, one he believed must never be forgotten. First, remember the nature of the world, a vast, rational whole governed by order and necessity. Second, remember your own nature, that you are a rational being, born to live in harmony with reason and virtue. Third, reflect on your relationship to the world. You are not separate from it, but a part of its great interconnected design. Fourth, remember your proportion, that in the vast sweep of the universe, you are but a small part, humble, yet essential to the whole. Finally, understand this. No one, no force can prevent you from living in accordance with nature. You always possess the power to think, to speak, and to act with integrity, regardless of what the world places in your path. For Marcus, these truths were the foundation of a life grounded in resilience, humility, and inner peace. Meditations 2.10. In comparing sins, the way people do, Theophrastus says that the ones committed out of desire are worse than the ones committed out of anger, which is good philosophy. The angry man seems to turn his back on reason out of a kind of pain and inner convulsion, but the man motivated by desire, who is mastered by pleasure, seems somehow more self-indulgent, less manly in his sins. Theophrastus is right and philosophically sound, to say that the sin committed out of pleasure deserves a harsher rebuke than the one committed out of pain. The angry man is more like a victim of wrongdoing, provoked by pain to anger. The other man rushes into wrongdoing on his own, moved to action by desire. In Meditations 2.10, Marcus Aurelius reflects on a teaching from Theophrastus, a distinction in the nature of human faults. Theophrastus argued, and Marcus agreed, that sins committed from desire are worse than those born of anger. The angry man, Marcus notes, loses control in a moment of pain, turning away from reason in a convulsion of emotion. His fault, though real, is a reaction, a surrender under provocation. But the man driven by desire acts differently. He is not provoked by suffering, but lured by pleasure, and in surrendering to it, he abandons reason willingly. His sin is not a momentary lapse but a deliberate indulgence, a voluntary betrayal of the rational mind. The angry man is more like a victim, provoked into wrongdoing. The man of desire rushes into sin of his own accord, mastered by his appetites. For Marcus, this distinction matters. True strength lies in self-control, and to forsake it knowingly for pleasure is to commit a deeper, more damaging fault. The sins of pleasure deserve, he says, the harsher rebuke. Meditations 2.11. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. If the gods exist, then to abandon human beings is not frightening. The gods would never subject you to harm. And if they don't exist, or don't care what happens to us, what would be the point of living in a world without gods or providence? But they do exist. They do care what happens to us, and everything a person needs to avoid real harm, they have placed within him. If there were anything harmful on the other side of death, they would have made sure that the ability to avoid it was within you. If it doesn't harm your character, how can it harm your life? Nature would not have overlooked such dangers through failing to recognize them, or because it saw them but was powerless to prevent or correct them. Nor would it ever, through inability or incompetence, make such a mistake as to let good and bad things happen indiscriminately to good and bad alike. But death and life, success and failure, pain and pleasure, wealth and poverty, all these happen to good and bad alike, and they are neither noble nor shameful, and hence neither good nor bad. In Meditations 2.11, Marcus Aurelius offers a sober reflection on life, death, and the nature of true harm. He reminds himself that death can come at any moment, and that knowledge should shape every action, word, and thought. Living with the awareness of mortality, Marcus believed, brings focus and integrity. He reflects on the nature of the gods. If they exist, they would not abandon humanity to harm. And if they do not exist, or do not care, then life would lack meaning. But Marcus is certain, the gods do exist, and they have placed within each person all that is necessary to avoid true harm, the rational mind and the capacity for virtue. Death, he reasons, cannot damage what truly matters, the character, and if it cannot touch the soul's virtue, it cannot harm the soul's life. Nature, wise and rational, would not have allowed real dangers to go unnoticed or unguarded. Marcus concludes that life and death, success and failure, pleasure and pain, wealth and poverty, all these come equally to the good and the wicked. They are neither noble nor shameful, and therefore neither good nor evil. Only virtue is good. Only vice is bad. Everything else is indifferent. Meditations 2.12. The speed with which all of them vanish, the objects in the world, and the memory of them in time, and the real nature of the things our senses experience, especially those that entice us with pleasure or frighten us with pain, or are loudly trumpeted by pride. To understand those things, how stupid, contemptible, grimy, decaying, and dead they are, that's what our intellectual powers are for, and to understand what those people really amount to, whose opinions and voices constitute fame, and what dying is, and that if you look at it in the abstract and break down your imaginary ideas of it by logical analysis, You realize that it's nothing but a process of nature, which only children can be afraid of. And not only a process of nature, but a necessary one. And how man grasps God, with what part of himself he does so, and how that part is conditioned when he does. In Meditations 2.12, Marcus Aurelius reflects on the fleeting nature of all things. He reminds himself that everything in the world, objects, pleasures, pains, and even fame, vanishes swiftly. Not only do things themselves decay and pass away, but even the memory of them fades in time. Marcus urges the use of reason to strip away illusions. The pleasures that entice, the pains that frighten, and the honors that fuel pride, all, when seen clearly, reveal themselves as trivial, decaying, and dead. Reason was given to man for this very purpose, to see things as they truly are. He reflects too on fame and how little it truly matters. The opinions that make up fame are fragile, held by transient and fallible people. To chase their approval is to seek something hollow. Marcus then turns to the subject of death. If one looks carefully, breaking away the imaginary fears that cloud the mind, death is revealed not as a terror but as a natural process, one as ordinary and necessary as birth and growth. Only a child clinging to illusion could fear it. Finally, Marcus speaks of how man connects to the divine. It is not with the body or senses, but with the rational mind. And for that connection to be true and clear, the mind must be disciplined, purified, and attuned to the higher order. Through reason, man sees the world rightly. Through reason, he grasps the divine. Meditations 2.13. Nothing is more pathetic than people who run around in circles, delving into the things that lie beneath, and conducting investigations into the souls of the people around them, never realizing that all you have to do is to be attentive to the power inside you and worship it sincerely. To worship it is to keep it from being muddied with turmoil and becoming aimless and dissatisfied with nature, divine and human. What is divine deserves our respect because it is good. What is human deserves our affection because it is like us. And our pity too sometimes, for its inability to tell good from bad, as terrible a blindness as the kind that can't tell white from black. In Meditations 2.13, Marcus Aurelius reflects on a common folly he observed among people: the tireless urge to investigate others. He saw many consumed with curiosity, delving into the hidden lives of those around them, dissecting their motives, judging their character, while neglecting the one soul they ought to know best, their own. Marcus urged instead a higher devotion. Let a man turn inward, he said. Let him pay reverence to the rational mind within him, the divine spark that guides right action. To worship it rightly is to preserve its clarity, keep it free from confusion, bitterness, and the chaotic urges that disrupt peace. He reminded himself and his readers to respect what is divine because it is good, and to love what is human because it shares in our nature. Even those who are misguided, those who cannot distinguish between good and evil, deserve compassion, not contempt. Their ignorance, he believed, was as tragic as a blindness that cannot tell light from darkness. Marcus saw this inner discipline not as mere philosophy, but as a sacred duty. To attend earnestly to one's own soul, that, he believed, was the true path to dignity and wisdom. Meditations 2.14. Even if you're going to live 3,000 more years or 10 times that, remember, you cannot lose another life than the one you're living now, or live another one than the one you're losing. The longest amounts to the same as the shortest. The present is the same for everyone. Its loss is the same for everyone. And it should be clear that a brief instant is all that is lost. For you can't lose either the past or the future. How could you lose what you don't have? Remember two things. 1. That everything has always been the same and keeps recurring, and it makes no difference whether you see the same things recur in 100 years or 200, or in an infinite period. 2. That the longest lived and those who will die soonest lose the same thing. The present is all that they can give up, since that is all you have, and what you do not have You cannot lose. In Meditations 2.14, Marcus Aurelius reflects deeply on the nature of time and what it truly means to live. He reminds himself that even if he were granted 3,000 years, or 10 times that, he would still have only one life, the one he is living right now. He understands that neither the past nor the future belong to him. The only thing any person ever truly possesses is the present moment. Whether someone lives a short life or a long one, they lose the same thing: now. And what a person doesn't have, they can't lose. Marcus considers two essential truths. First, everything repeats. The events of the world, its pleasures, struggles, and ambitions, cycle endlessly. Whether one lives to witness these things over 100 years or 1,000 makes no real difference. The patterns remain unchanged. Second, the length of a life does not change what is lost at death. Those who die young and those who die old part with the same thing: the present moment. That is all anyone has. That is all anyone ever gives up. With this understanding, Marcus urges himself to stop fearing death and to let go of the illusion that more time equals more life. Instead, he chooses to honor each moment by living with clarity and purpose. Because for Marcus, and for all who seek wisdom, the present is enough. Meditations 2.15. Everything is just an impression, Monimus the cynic, and the response is obvious enough. But the point is a useful one if you take it for what it's worth. In Meditations 2.15, Marcus Aurelius reflects on a saying from Monimus the cynic: everything is just an impression. At first glance, he admits, the response to such a claim seems obvious, even dismissive, but Marcus pauses, as he often does, to consider the deeper value beneath the surface. If taken seriously, he says, the idea is not just philosophical, it's useful. To Marcus, the phrase is a reminder that the world we experience is shaped not by events themselves, but by the impressions we form of them. Pain, loss, insult, fear, these are not objective harms. They are judgments we place upon impressions, and judgments, he knew, are within our control. He does not quote Monimus to entertain abstraction, but to anchor himself in a truth. When we remember that everything is just an impression, we reclaim our power to choose how we respond. That understanding, he believed, is a quiet form of freedom, one available at any moment, in any life. Meditations 2.16. The human soul degrades itself. 1. Above all, when it does its best to become an abscess, a kind of detached growth on the world. To be disgruntled at anything that happens is a kind of secession from nature, which comprises the nature of all things. 2. When it turns its back on another person or sets out to do it harm, as the souls of the angry do. 3. When it is overpowered by pleasure or pain. 4. When it puts on a mask and does or says something artificial or false. 5. When it allows its action and impulse to be without a purpose, to be random and disconnected. Even the smallest things ought to be directed toward a goal. But the goal of rational beings is to follow the rule and law of the most ancient of communities and states. In Meditations 2.16, Marcus Aurelius reflected on the ways the human soul can degrade itself, how it strays from nature and reason, and in doing so, loses its nobility. First, he observed, the soul falters most grievously when it behaves like an abscess, separating itself from the whole. To complain, to resent fate, is to detach from the natural order of things. It is to reject our place in the cosmos, and in that rebellion, the soul festers. Second, when one turns against another, harboring anger, seeking harm, the soul acts contrary to its social nature. We are meant to live in harmony with others, not as adversaries, but as companions on the same voyage. Third, Marcus warned against surrendering to pleasure or pain. The soul becomes a servant, no longer sovereign. It forgets its purpose when it chases fleeting feelings instead of enduring truths. Fourth, he condemned falseness. When the soul wears masks, pretending, deceiving, it loses its clarity. To act without sincerity is to deny one's true self, and to fracture the unity between thought and deed. And finally, the soul loses its dignity when it acts without aim. Even the smallest gesture, Marcus insisted, must have purpose. For a rational being, that purpose is to live in accordance with nature and to obey the just laws that govern the whole. These 5 degradations were, to Marcus, not merely moral failings. They were signs of a soul forgetting what it was meant to be. Meditations 2.17. Human life. Duration momentary, nature changeable, perception dim, condition of body decaying, soul spinning around, fortune unpredictable, lasting fame uncertain. Sum up. The body and its parts are a river, the soul a dream in mist. Life is warfare and a journey far from home. Lasting reputation is oblivion. Then what can guide us? Only philosophy. Which means making sure that the power within stays safe and free from assault, superior to pleasure and pain, doing nothing randomly or dishonestly and with imposture, not dependent on anyone else's doing something or not doing it, and making sure that it accepts what happens and what it is dealt as coming from the same place it came from, and above all that it accepts death in a cheerful spirit, as nothing but the dissolution of the elements from which each living thing is composed. If it doesn't hurt the individual elements to change continually into one another, why are people afraid of all of them changing and separating? It's a natural thing, and nothing natural is evil. In Meditations 2.17, Marcus Aurelius contemplates the nature of life with sobering clarity. He reflects that human existence is fleeting, its duration, momentary, our nature, always changing, the senses we rely on, dimensois, the body, a decaying vessel, the soul, often restless, spinning about. Fortune is fickle, and even the glory of lasting fame eventually dissolves into silence and forgetfulness. He likens the human condition to a river, always in motion, the soul to a dream or a mist, ethereal, uncertain. Life itself he calls a kind of warfare, a long march far from home. And what of reputation? Just another form of oblivion. In the face of this impermanence, Marcus asks what can guide us. His answer is simple and enduring. Philosophy. Philosophy, for Marcus, is the anchor. It ensures that the power within us, our reason, our ruling faculty, remains unshaken, that it stays above pleasure and pain, that it acts with honesty, purpose, and dignity, that it accepts whatever fate may bring as having come from the same natural source that created us. And above all, philosophy teaches us to face death, not with fear, but with calm and trust. It is merely the dissolution of the elements of which we are composed. If these elements are not harmed by their constant transformation, why should we fear our own return to nature? To Marcus, nothing natural is evil, and nothing is more natural than change.